the Climate Show. My name's Theo. Today we're going to be going to Albany, New York, where anti-fracking activists from around the country converged to celebrate the great victory in banning fracking. This was January 21, 2015, when Andrew Cuomo was inaugurated the same day. And so many great voices, so articulate about protecting the water. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Really was the thing that fired the work that we did. We could show the movie Gasland anywhere and we'd get 10 new volunteers showing up and more people engaged, and we all remember that, right? And so, you know, then I started working for the movie Gasland after it was out, and we kept pushing it, and Gasland 2 came, and it was like evidence and power and backing and credibility. And so I think, you know, we have to thank Sandra, and we have to thank so many other people for this moment, and the organizations, you know, Riverkeeper, you're here, and the, you know, everyone. But I think there's really no greater person for us to really acknowledge and appreciate than the illustrious Josh Fox.
I've never played a victory party before. I'm woefully inexperienced. It feels like, kind of like the afterlife. In the Hilton, Albany Hilton. Or as Lee called it, Albany. This is the time for bad jokes, right? when you win. It is kind of weirdly like, how did we end up here? Who designed those lights? But I've been so honored to be able to tell this story. In 2008, when I started to investigate fracking, we didn't really have science. We had a bunch of people screaming in Fort Worth and Pavilion, Wyoming, and places in Colorado called Parachute and Rifle and Battlement Mesa. And so now, oh yes, and Dish. And now, you know, now we have 415 plus peer-reviewed scientific papers that say, no, those people on Carter Road are not crazy. We have Sarita Farnelli in the house, the daughter of Pat Farnelli, the town crier of Dimmick. Thank you, Sarita, thank your family. You know, I really just have to say something very simple, which is, you know, my phone is ringing. Damn, all these, maybe it's Governor Cuomo. No, you know I've called him so many times in this project, so maybe he was calling you back. It was debt collectors. That's not a lie. This, I realized I took Amtrak from Los Angeles to New York home because I was sick of throwing lots of carbon up in the sky. And I realized that fighting fracking and fighting climate change is about trying to live without fear. You know? I mean, how terrifying was this? Is this? There are so many of us that are still living with that, right, at Seneca Lake. and if there are Pennsylvanians in the house, where we were yesterday, where we chanted the ban fracking out throughout the entire speech, 30-minute acceptance speech of Tom Wolf, and made him acknowledge us from the podium and said, "We'll work with you." That never happened. That hasn't happened. We're 200 feet away. And so, I want to say, what's the opposite of fear?
Love.
Love? Love. Power? What else? Courage. I think these are words that describe you, but I also think they're the words that describe the democratic process in New York State. We've had the luxury of being able to participate in something truly democratic. From 2008, Sheldrake scoping hearings on something called the S-Guys, D-S-Guys. Draft Supplemental Generic Environmental Ethics. Statement? Study? Thank you. I love New York because they finishes your sentences for you. Even when your program took longer than it took to ban fracking. But I think those are words that describe Governor Cuomo now. I mean, you imagine the fear that is in the heart of a politician when facing down the richest and most powerful industry in the history of industries, in the history of money. It's got to be really hard to take them head on. And I feel very proud and happy to just say thank you. And, you know, that's an incredible thing to see happen from the beginning to the end. So, thank you, I can't say it enough, to Governor Cuomo, to Commissioner Martens, to Dr. Zucker, to the people involved in this decision, and to all these amazing people that I've had it was sort of my job to just bear witness to. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And one other person that I got to meet along this journey, I want to tell you about the last time I saw him. I want to tell you about the last time I saw Pete Seeger. Is that okay? It was in this tiny town of Milford, Pennsylvania, along the Delaware River, in June of 2013. And the people, the fractivists in Milford, Pennsylvania, had asked, they were having a concert. It was a really small room, like 200 people. And they asked Pete Seeger if he would come and play to kind of give them a shot in the arm. You know, it was a moment where we needed a little inspiration. And of course, as Pete always did, he said yes. And then they called me up and they asked me to introduce him. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I arrived, and it was a 100-year-old theater with a 94-year-old Pete Seeger. And I had this idea that I was going to play something to kind of introduce him. And I wanted to know if it was okay with him, this particular song that I wanted to play. And so I went backstage. I said, Pete, I want to introduce you and play this song. Is this song okay? And he says, you know, that was the greatest hit song of 1814. Like he was there. And he says, a fellow sang that song in a bar one night, and it was such a big hit, he had to sing it twice. And then, clip-clop, at 4 miles an hour, all the way up and down the North Atlantic coast, that song became the most popular tune in the United States of America. And I said, I didn't know that. That's an amazing story. And I knew there was a lesson in there. So I'm going to play it for you now. If I can borrow Richie's banjo. His strap is a little taller. He's a little taller. See if you can't figure out what it is. I'm going to try this with this. Okay, let's try this. Can you hear that? 100 days. In 1930 as our national anthem. So, you know, I learned a lot of lessons from Pete over the years. My first concert I ever saw was Pete Seeger, the second concert I ever saw was Pete Seeger, the third concert I ever saw was Pete Seeger, fourth concert I ever saw was Pete Seeger, fifth concert I saw was Kiss, sixth concert I ever saw, you know, was Pete Seeger. I was that kind of kid. Or rather, I had those kind of parents. And so I learned, you know, that if you want to get New Yorkers involved in an issue on the environment, you talk about how their water comes from 112 miles away from the city, right? New York City people. And I learned that, you know, music and culture was a great way to have a conversation about organizing and politics. But this is something I got right up close. And of course it was, you know, be careful what you do in a bar. You might start a nation. No, I'm kidding. That wasn't the lesson. The lesson was, you know, if a bar song can become the national anthem of the United States of America, then we're really just making up America as we go along.
Yes, sir.
And as Pete said, in the halls of the New York State Senate, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And here's this man, one of the great authors of the United States of America, imploring us, the fracking movement, to write that next chapter, to write the next great song, to write the next great piece of history, to say we can give birth and write the next piece of America. And I can't help but feel that a part of that novel or history has been written now, and that you are now charged with finishing the book on this moment, which isn't finished until we stop fracking in Pennsylvania, which isn't finished until we stop fracking in West Virginia, which isn't finished until we stop it in Texas, and in China, and in South Africa, and in France, and in Germany, and in New Mexico, and in Argentina. Yeah, Chevron just left Poland too, you know that. Because the farmers outlasted them for over a year. But we have to do that because until we stop climate change, we're still all living in that with that fear. And like David said, yes, this is a moment we really have to party. And I'm happy that, and I'm sure you all are happy too, that I'm at the end of my speech.
Well, this is just an incredible victory, the ban on fracking in New York. It's just thrilling for everyone who worked in New York. I did a lot of work on to help fight for this ban in New York, and it's really important. I think it's going to have a ripple effect across the country. I've already heard from our members and activists in other states who are so moved by this victory and now wanting to step up and take action to protect their communities from drilling and fracking, and all of the associated infrastructure projects, which I know people in New York are committed to continue fighting as well.
What can we do to take the victory in New York to Vermont?
Well, the victory in New York is a historic one. It clearly says that the fossil fuel extraction model that is being used is not safe for health and public health. And so what we're coming to find out is that fracking was the wedge issue that started actually getting us to examine a lot of these other infrastructure projects and issues. And now that we're seeing that these are toxic and dangerous for our communities, and just from a climate change perspective, we should do no further expansion of fossil fuels. It just doesn't make sense. You know, the closest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So if we are at a transitionary place and we know fossil fuels are toxic and fossil fuels are bad, in order to save the climate so millions and millions and millions of people do not suffer, we need to take a direct line straight to renewable energy and listen, people that build out pipelines, they're not going to want to stop using that pipeline in 5 or 10 years. There's no transition there. They're going to want to build those power plants or export that gas. We're going to build out a whole economy where they're going to want to see us use this sort of energy for years, 50 to at least 100 years. Why allow that to happen? It's crazy. Urgency. We have the Pope talking about climate change. President Obama, everyone's saying climate change is a problem. So what? We have to put our money where our mouth is. And so Vermont is working hard, but needs to really be the leader of the country by not allowing these infrastructure projects. Vermont actually was the first state to ban fracking, but now they need to go that extra step and ban the infrastructure so we can truly demonstrate who we are, where we're headed, and the kind of leadership that it's going to take for us to get there. Yeah.
Well, my name is Winona Howder, and I'm Executive Director at Food and Water Watch, and this is an enormous victory for the entire fracking movement because it means that we can move forward into other states. And, you know, just a few years ago, people were saying that we were actually crazy and strident, and that this was completely impossible. And it shows that when people get together and organize and hold their elected officials accountable, that we can achieve amazing things. And that's what we really need to do going forward. We need to duplicate this fantastic victory in New York around the country. And we need to stop the Obama administration from moving forward with rules like the methane rules that are going to bring more natural gas along with oil and coal out of the ground and are the opposite from what we need to really have a sustainable future and to stop climate chaos. And I think that it's completely irresponsible to call natural gas a bridge fuel to build another 30 to 40 years of infrastructure for it. This is just another way to keep fossil fuels in the future rather than really going to renewable energy and energy efficiency, which is the real future. So here's to more victories all around the country.
The victory means clean water. It means the people united will never be defeated. And in unity there's power. And we hope that Cuomo is going to stick to his word, that this isn't just a little passing fancy, that he's going to stick to his guns, and that there will be no fracking ever in New York State. And that this is going to have a ripple effect and the other governors are going to follow suit.
Well, I'm glad that the health commissioner actually has the morality to not say that he wouldn't do it to his kids and his family, so he wouldn't do it to anybody. And that's so rare in our government, that morality. And so I'm really happy that he looked at the reality of climate change and passed it on to the governor, and the governor looked at it and said, well, I guess it might be politically wise too, so I'll do it. So I think it's great. I think it's one little step. And as Pete Seeger talked about the seesaw, you know, if everybody just kind of moves one step, all of a sudden it'll start going the other way and then it'll start running, and who knows, sanity might break out in the world, I hope.
I think this has potential to really be historic, extremely important, but I think it depends on where the governor decides to go from here. If he wants to build out fracking infrastructure, sort of like they're doing in Vermont, saying we ban fracking, but we're going to build pipelines and infrastructure, it kind of makes Governor Cuomo and New Yorkers selfish, hypocritical NIMBYs, in my opinion. But if he says, you know, the fact that we said fracking is not safe for New Yorkers, obviously means it's not safe for anybody. It's not healthy for anybody anywhere. And so we, not only New York, but the whole country need to move away from fracking infrastructure. We need to get on renewables as quickly as possible. And if he adopts that position, I think he can become a real champion and a national leader. Because fracking probably is, in my opinion, is the single biggest roadblock to getting us to renewables, because everybody's spending all this money to build out the infrastructure, and with sort of the myth that somehow this is cleaner energy. And all that it really is doing is delaying further the move to renewables and keeping us on fossil fuels.
So today, I got arrested with 20 other people during Governor Cuomo's State of the State address because we wanted to send the message that Black Lives Matter and that we're calling for racial justice and an end to mass incarceration in New York. And I want to say that I'm also a fractivist from Southern Tier, New York. I take great joy in the announcement of a fracking ban because it's literally going to protect my family and the farm that I grew up on. But I also think we have a lot of work to do over the next couple years, forming bonds between the environmental movement and the racial justice movement, because we're going to have to fight the bomb trains, we're going to have to fight the pipelines, and those are projects, infrastructural projects, that are already sending massive amounts of gas and oil through New York State despite the fracking ban, and they're disproportionately affecting communities of color and low-income communities. And, you know, if we're going to actually rise up and fight, you know, dozens of infrastructural projects across our state, we're going to have to do it together, unified, and, you know, I can't wait to start that work.
I think what we're seeing is a lot of the science is just now coming out, confirming what we've been hearing from people on the ground for years and years now, which is that their water is different, that their water is changed, that their water is contaminated. And so we're seeing that well failures are affecting water quality across the country. If we know that instantly a certain percentage of the wells fail, over time that's even more. And so as we're drilling and fracking thousands of new wells every year, we're going to see accidents happen and we're going to see water contaminated. And what's very concerning to me is that we still don't understand what the long-term effects of just fracking itself and what's happening underground. I mean, no one really knows what's happening, and our water resources are limited, and all life is dependent on it. And so that's why with what we know and with what we don't know, we think it's time to stop this dangerous drilling for fossil fuels and transition to renewable energy, energy efficiency, conservation. It's possible, and we just have to keep fighting for it like we fought for the ban on fracking in New York. So.
Your valiant campaign, we stayed strong, got what we wanted for so long, proud and happy now. Victory today, victory today. We led a movement with hope and reason. Victory today. Victory. Hermanos y hermanas, mañana vendrá limpia y sana, como la tierra será. Juntos sí se puede, juntos somos fuertes, hasta la victoria siempre. Okay, can't say a roaring stream, nor the power of a common dream. Beloved New York, it's for you before, and we celebrate as we fight for Seneca Bay. Proud and happy now. Victory. Proud and happy now. Victory. Oh, proud and happy now. Just today. Proud and happy now. Victory today. Oh, victory today. Tomorrow, victory. Proud and happy now. Victory today. People are already doing the work in solidarity with other areas, not just of the country and at the national level here, but internationally as well, because fracking knows no borders, and so neither should we. I mean, we shouldn't sit on our laurels here in New York State, but really be in solidarity with the folks that are struggling to keep their communities clean, you know. And I also think that here in New York, we have to lobby the DEC. We can still about issues of gas storage, about pipeline infrastructure, and about renewable energy. You know, that's for going forward. We have a plan supporting our local economies, which is even my little small town of Cortland, New York, is doing amazing things in terms of renewables, in terms of local agriculture, and we need to support all those things because it creates a beautiful community for our kids and for the nature. You know, I mean, we can't be. I mean, it's insane to continue to add any more to the climate crisis that we're facing.
Well, as you can see, so many articulate voices about protecting the earth and water and issues around power and justice and money. So stick together, people. We have to protect the earth and protect our water. Fracking is ours to win. The science is with us. The S-Geist is our lever upon which to lever the truth. The evidence submitted to the S-Geist is like we're never going to get more than this. The poor people of North Dakota will never have the governance that you had in New York. And the people and the wealth and the community and Pete Seeger, it's all mated together. So you guys need to figure out a way to help the world with what we already have done. And so what I'm saying is, consider the S-Geist our evidence. Let's make Mr. Obama do the right thing on his way out and fight for our water. Thank you.